Hello everyone, this is Kevin Green with Kevin Green Elevates. Welcome to Kev's Kitchen. This is the cooking show where we are ditching the recipes and we are cooking outside the lines. There's no need to rely on a recipe when you master the fundamentals, and today's episode is aimed to help you enjoy cooking and make it much more easier. And so let's get into it. We have a composed dish with 5 ingredients. I call it my 5 ingredient flow. In the kitchen, we're dancing, there's a sport to it, there's almost a romance to it. But like, if you can move efficiently, creatively, maybe even intuitively, there's a rhythm to it. And so we want to get into that flow state when we're cooking. It should be an enjoyment. It should be fun. It shouldn't be laborious. And so 5 ingredients to flow. So check it out. We have, for our composed dish today, we have sirloin steak, fingerling potatoes, mushrooms, chimichurri, and asparagus. And so 5 ingredients to flow. We're going to walk through this dish, show you 2 tips, 1 technique, and we're going to plate it at the end, and then I have something for you to take away. And so let's get into it. We're going to move things around a little bit, and we're going to get set up. And so I did go ahead and pre-cook these potatoes. These are what's called fingerling potatoes, named after the obvious. They look like a finger, and so these are poached. I like to take those and cook those in water with some fresh garlic. You can leave the skins on. Fresh garlic, maybe a dried chili, definitely some bay leaf. Those are friends. And cook those till they're tender on the inside, but still have some texture to them. When I grew up, I learned how to make mashed potatoes, but we boiled the heck out of them. In my culinary training, I learned to kind of approach it a little more gently and let the potato cook. And so in this idea, we're going to have a soft inside and a crispy outside. It's a great way to make potatoes. And so I'm just going to slice a few of these in half, and you can kind of see there's still a little bit of texture there. These are still hot as well, and I'm going to separate those, and we're going to get a nice crispy skin on our fingerling potatoes. And so 5 ingredients to flow. We've got the potato. We've got our chimichurri. Chimichurri is an Argentinian condiment. It's made up of a variety of herbs. This could be oregano. I primarily like to use parsley, cilantro, a little bit of crushed red pepper, and then some acid in there as well. And so it's kind of like a pesto, but it's a little bit different. And so steak and chimichurri love each other. They go together quite well. And so we have our chimichurri as well, and then asparagus. And so we're getting into the spring, and so we wanted to feature asparagus today. You guys are likely familiar if you break these from the stem. It kind of gives you a guide, and we're going to do that. This one doesn't want to work. We'll get rid of him. And so we've already torn off the bottoms, and we're going to put those in the oven. Again, our 5 ingredient flow is aimed to help you execute with these, make dinner at home much more easy during the weeknight. And so this is simple steps. And so we're going to pop these in the oven and just roast them off. No need to get out a blanching pot or boil those or anything of that nature. And so I'm going to go ahead and pop those in the oven and get them cooking. They're so thin, they're going to take a few minutes. So we're going to get that going now. And then we're going to showcase our steaks. You could use any particular steak for this. We have sirloin in this case. It's quite the economical cut. You could go with a strip. You could go with a fillet. You could do a ribeye. You can pan-sear pretty much anything. Ideally, we're going to get a nice crust on that, and I'll show you that in just a minute. All right, a little bit of extra virgin olive oil, a little bit of salt into the oven, 5-7 minutes. We'll check them. Again, these are quite thin, so they're going to cook relatively quickly. And I do have a preheated oven at 400 degrees. All right, and so I do want to mention our mushrooms here. These are not just your run-of-the-mill button or baby bella mushrooms. These are actually what you might call beach or hanjamiji mushrooms. And so they come in a cluster, and you can peel those apart, cut off the root. And so these are nice here. Okay, so we've got the asparagus in the oven, and we have our potatoes and our steaks and our sauce. And so 5 ingredients to flow. What we want to do here, I have my butane burner here so that you can see it. I don't want to set off the smoke alarms, but we want to get a hot pan. And so tip and technique number one, we want to make sure that our steak is dry. Okay, and one way we want to do that is to grab a paper towel. This could be for anything that you sear. It could be a scallop, could be a steak. You want to make sure you have a hot pan and remove moisture. Moisture is the enemy of a great sear. And so with that in mind, we're going to dab the tops of these steaks before we season them and remove that moisture. Now, if you read any quality cookbook, it may suggest or advise that you pre-season the steaks. If you're at home, you could do this for a large cut the day before. The salt's going to pull out moisture. Osmosis is going to do its thing, and it's kind of rebalance that moisture level. That's why I like to salt heavily. I'm doing this a la minute right now, or at the last minute, which is fine as well. We're in a rush. It's the busy week now. We just got in from work, et cetera, et cetera. But we want to make sure we remove that moisture and get our pan nice and hot. And so I want to show you that now. That's our first chef tip of the episode. And then we're going to keep going here. And so I'm going to start here and put back under my hood as to not set off the fire alarm. And so I want to show you that. And then our technique for today is a sear. Not to be confused with sweating. Sweating is in a skillet over low heat, but sear is over hot heat with a little bit of fat to get that nice, crispy crust. And so let's do that now. I'm going to go ahead and season these steaks. I like to season from on high and just kind of let it rain down. It gets a nice coverage. I even put my plate here in the sink so that less mess. We're not trying to clean up a whole bunch of stuff. We have other things we want to get to at the end of a long work day. And so season both sides. This is salt and cracked black pepper. And then we're going to preheat. I'm going to go ahead and preheat this skillet and let it get warm. Okay. So again, we're looking to sear our steaks. We want to get a hot pan, a little bit of fat, in this case olive oil, and we want to get a crispy skewer. And we're going to get a nice sear because we have, again, removed that moisture. What we're going to do is sear it off, take it to the back of the stove, let it finish cooking through, and then we're actually going to add our potato and our mushroom to a similar skillet and almost make it like a one-pot deal. And so it's going to come together quite quickly because we've already cooked off potatoes, and the mushrooms cook quite fast, and that's going to come together nicely. And so, with that in mind, one of the things I like to note when you are searing, you want to use an oil that's got a high smoke point. Grapeseed's one of those, olive oil's nice, a neutral one at least. You don't want to sear in pure butter because of the milk solids. They'll burn over high heat. You can finish with butter, which we may do here, but we want to get a hot pan. And if you have proper ventilation, you can almost look at it. If that oil's got like a sheen and a shimmer and a little bit of smoke, you're in the neighborhood. So you're ready to roll. And so, and let it talk back to you. It's going to tell you, it's going to make some sounds. And it's going to tell you. So we're going to start here, move it back to my stove. And we're looking for a nice sear, crispy crust on both sides. One of the cool things about cooking is it's sensual. It's using all your senses. And so we can watch the protein turn colors. It's going to go from red to gray to brown. And you can listen to it as well. It's talking to you, right? We'll let it do its thing back there. It's talking to you. And so you're going to use your senses to kind of work through this process of getting a nice sear on this steak. And we're going to let it do its thing right there. I'm going to turn it down. So you can start at a high heat and then reduce that over time and let it kind of gradually build that crust. That's what you want. And then our fundamental technique today is letting our steak rest. I'm going to talk about that in just a minute. All right. And so again, let's recap. We have 5 ingredients to flow. We have cooked off or poached fingerling potatoes that we've sliced in half. We have our beach or hanjimiji mushrooms. We have our Argentinian condiment, similar to a pesto, chimichurri. We have our asparagus in the oven, and we have our steak working here. And so what we're gonna do, again, we're gonna finish this, we're gonna let it rest. I'm gonna show you the benefits of letting your steaks rest, and we're gonna assemble this dish and bring it all together. Our 2 tips and/or techniques, we have removing moisture from a protein before you sear it. All right, that helps it get a nice crispy crust. All right, and then we're gonna let our steak rest. As it rests, the juices redistribute, the muscle relaxes, and you kind of get the essence of what it's intended to be. When you go and check for a temp check, like by touching a steak, for example, if it's still on the heat source, it's not a true read. And so as you take it off and let it rest, the muscle relaxes, it rests, the juices redistribute, and you get like the temperature it's intended to be. It's its best self, right? And so that is resting our steak or resting our protein, all right? Okay. So I need some tongs. I need to see what's happening here. Oh, that looks pretty good. Again, we're gonna hit it on this second side. I'm going to check on our asparagus. Here's the cool thing about asparagus, like if you overcook a green vegetable, it goes from green to gray, right? Like the chlorophyll in the cells, all the things, like it loses its nutrients and its kind of overall value, but you can tell a change in color. In addition to texture, it gets nice and really soft rather. But you can watch the green in these asparagus, and whether you blanch them or you roast them like this, like they're gonna get limp the longer you cook them. Like right now they're nice and crisp. There's some carryover, but they're still nice and bright green. And so I'm gonna let those ride, call those done. And then for today's purposes, what we're gonna do, we've got a nice sear on our steak. We're gonna pop that in the oven and let it cook through a little bit. All right. While that steak's in the oven, I'm gonna simply separate our potatoes and get those ready. And so what I wanna do here is let the steak rest, and then we're gonna grab our skillet, and we're gonna fire it up again, get it nice and hot, and we can lay these potatoes down nice and crisp, like cut side down, and they're gonna get a nice crispy brown skin. So again, they're soft on the inside, crispy on the outside. And then to that same pan, we can add our mushrooms. We want those to get a little bit of a sear as well, a little bit of coloration, a little bit of caramelization. And then we've got our potatoes, we've got our mushrooms in the same pan. And so we're halfway home already. We're gonna garnish our plate with this chimichurri, and then we're gonna add our asparagus on top and make a nice composed dish. And so you may have seen this if you've watched a video before or scoured Instagram or some other social media outlet, but we are looking to add flavor. And one way you can do that, if you wanna take some fresh butter, maybe some fresh herbs like a rosemary or thyme, maybe some garlic cloves, you wanna baste that steak. A lot of high-end restaurants will do this, and it's quite popular nowadays, but you can spoon that butter over that steak and let it do its thing. And so what happens there, I'm gonna wash up, what happens there is you add heat to the butter. Butter's got water, it's got its fat, and it's got its milk solids. As you baste the steak and spoon that butter over, you are in essence caramelizing or cooking the milk solids, and so they'll start to brown. And so when you do that, when you spoon it over the herbs, it really perfumes the room. It's one of my favorite kitchen smells, but it cooks the milk solids while the water evaporates, and so you just have that milk fat left. But it'll go from brown to black quite quickly, so you want to regulate the heat. But that brown butter, that beurre noisette, if you will, is a beautiful thing, and it's great for meat and proteins like a steak. And so we are letting that finish up. And here's the thing, let's go ahead and talk about it, because what we want to do is we want to allow our steaks to rest. And I alluded to it a minute ago, but if you throw a steak on the grill or in a pan and you put the thermometer in it or you touch it and you see how firm it is or isn't. Like it needs to rest to get an accurate read. And so often I like to let it rest for the length of time I've cooked it. And so that allows the juices to redistribute, the muscle to relax, and you get an accurate read on its internal temperature and its aesthetic, like the nice, beautiful color that you're looking for. And so we're gonna let that rest just for a few minutes, and we're gonna bring this plate together, okay? Let's see what we have. So on that note, when it comes to our meat doneness, and so we've got it in the oven here, it's doing its thing. You can use temperature, you can use time, you can use the thermometer. And so depending on what's going on, I'll use a combo of all three sometimes. And so we can obviously use, let me find mine here, our trusty dusty digital thermometer to check the doneness of a protein. Sometimes people don't know, but there's two ways you want to make sure these are accurate, and I'll go ahead and share that with you. So you want to calibrate your thermometers, and so you can put these into boiling water. Boiling water boils at 212 degrees, and so if your water boils and your thermometer reads 212, then you know it's accurate. I usually do plus or minus 2 or 3 degrees, but that's one way to check the accuracy of your thermometer. You can also put it into like ice water, and it should give you an accurate read there. Is it 32 degrees or 0 degrees? I always get those confused. 32 degrees. And so you can calibrate your thermometers that way. And so that's one way to do it with your thermometer. If you have a thermometer that has a probe in it, sometimes I'll do what's called a reverse sear on like a thick steak or a roast, and you can set your internal temperature. You can use a probe thermometer as well. And then sometimes it just comes by getting reps in. So like we're practicing, we're learning timing, we're learning the intuition of it all. And so that comes with experience. And then obviously you can press on your thumbs and do the old trick here. You can kind of press on parts of your inside of your mouth. It's kind of odd and gross, but like you want to get a feel for the general doneness of a piece of meat. And so that is the lesson on that. And so let's check on our steak, and we're going to bring this together. All right, and so you can see here that there's a nice crust. We've got a nice brown crust. You can see the salt and pepper. We can press on this, right? Okay. Pan's a little warm, so we're gonna wash up. And what we're gonna do, I'm gonna bring this back over, and we're gonna cook these potatoes. Again, we want to get a little crispy on the potato and the mushroom, and so we want to preheat the pan and then add the oil and then kind of look for that shimmer, that little shine. It's going to tell you it's ready to go. And then we're going to put our potatoes flat side down, and then we're going to kind of pepper or dot the mushrooms throughout. When you're cooking with certain ingredients, if they're all relatively the same size, they're going to cook in relatively the same amount of time. So that's what we're looking to do here. With our potatoes and our mushroom. I think it's helpful, like anytime you're making a weeknight dinner, like you don't want to get out all the pots and pans. You don't want to do all the dishes and spend hours in the kitchen at home, especially if you've got a family, if you've got activities. And so trying to think of dishes that are simple techniques or only one pot or this and that is very, very helpful. All right, and so I did use a nonstick skillet on our steaks. We have a stainless skillet here. We're gonna start our potatoes, we'll move them back to the stove. I want you to see it. And so with these, you don't want them to stick. Okay. Give it a little shake. We're gonna put those on the heat. I'm gonna give a little vent there. I'm gonna go ahead and pepper these mushrooms. Again, these are our beach or hanjimiji mushrooms. You can actually kind of scoot the potatoes to one side of the pan, put the mushrooms on the other if it's big enough, and you'll start to get that browning that we're looking for. Awesome. I like to kind of salt the mushrooms just a little bit, and potatoes love salt as well, so we can throw a little bit of salt on there. And we're gonna get this out of the way. So the meat's resting, right? Ooh, I could add some butter. I can add some butter here. I had it ready just in case. Pan's still warm, in case anybody's wondering. All right, nice little fanned sirloin there. Nice little fanned sirloin there. Beautiful. Okay, so mission accomplished. We've got a nice crispy sear on our potato. Soft on the inside, crispy on the outside. If you had some parsley or some chives, you could throw those on the potato. But here in Kev's Kitchen, this is 5 ingredients to flow, so we didn't have any room for any additional herbs. And so, nice steaks. We've got these medium rare. We got our potatoes nice and crisp. So let's go ahead and plate this up. So again, we have the lovely fingerling potatoes. I'm a steak and potato kind of guy. I grew up eating a lot of steak. I still don't eat a lot of seafood, but big fan. Big fan. I'll tell you what, while we're here, mushrooms finished with butter is just, yes. This kind of makes them a little bit richer. It kind of gives them a gloss, a little bit of a sheen, a little bit of a coat. I like that a lot. You've got some nice caramelization on those mushrooms as well. All right, they got to cooperate. They got to cooperate. Okay. All right, we're going to bring the asparagus over here. Nice and tight. All right. I'm just going to do a little dollop of our chimichurri. Kind of right here. This is so fragrant. You can see the red pepper flakes in there. It's a beautiful thing. So, nice and tight. And then we're going to fan out this this sirloin right here. Not too shabby, as Mama Shirley used to say. All right, y'all. So here we have our 5 ingredient flow. We have our seared sirloin. We talked about searing our pan, removing the moisture, and then we've let it rest. And so the juices have redistributed, the muscles relaxed, and it's what it should be. It's in its essence. It's where we wanted it to be, nice medium rare. We have the herbaceous and fragrant chimichurri with the roasted asparagus, the soft on the inside, crispy on the outside, seared fingerling potato, a nice little beach Hanjimiji style brown mushroom with just a tad bit of butter, a little bit of salt and pepper. And so this is our 5-ingredient flow, our steak and potato. So guys, thanks for joining me today in Kev's Kitchen. This is where we cook outside the lines. But before we go, I have one thought for you. This is what I like to call our mise en place moment. And so we spent all this time cooking, but how does that translate to life? Well, cooking's taught me so much about life and cooking on the line and life lessons that translate. And so think about it this way. In the workplace, in the professional environment, there's a time to rise, but there's a time to rest and relax. It's time to charge hard and it's time to balance things out. So just like our steak needs time to be in the pan when it's fiery and hot, but also it has to rest and relax and redistribute, there's a time for both. And when you add those together, you have a recipe for success. So think about that. If I can help you, your teams, there's some information below. You can see the alignment lab and alignment assessment there. But until next time, hey, stay sharp.